Everything should be connected. Good morning. As far as I can tell, I am right on time. Just pop out the chat here. So apparently, Dungeons and Dragons is having their 2021 community celebration, as long as you're like in the States, I suppose. It's kind of weird how they had like United States community celebration. It's just like, well, when are you going to accept that it's a worldwide game and has been for the last, 40 years? Given that TSR's original objective was to, Spawn Games Workshop, which was the TSR branch over in England, so that they could get a worldwide audience. It's like Get With The Program was the coast. And Hasbro, aren't you an international organisation? Hey Darth. Hey Kairos. Hey Robert. So yeah, bit strange. At least they've got some. They've got the DMs the DMs competition going on, and there's a Kiwi. And a New Zealander who's part of the 3 finalists, which is kind of interesting. No, I don't know him. Hey Greenscythe, hey Ian, hey Robert Maker, Robo Monkey, hey Nick, Moondog, Moonring, Dennis. I'm doing great, thanks. Life is good. I've been cranking up the content in the background. There's a couple of videos which you won't be seeing for quite some time. Hey Adrianeth. So the morgue video was kind of just like off the cuff, but there's a few others. The ones that I did the survey for. So at the moment I'm working on another spell series video and various other things in the background. But today I'm thinking about the Far Realm and weird stuff. Like for instance, the Van Ritten's Guide and the Domains of Dread, they had a Far Realm sort of beholder, a Mind Flayer realm, Domain of Dread, with a god brain in it. And they make all these hints. Hey Epic Thulu, hey Ruby, hey Justin, hey Fred, hey Brian, hey Yusef, hey Damien. They make references to the this god brain knowing ineffable secrets about the multiverse that it was not prepared for, but they don't make any mention about what those things are. And I'm kind of sick and tired of the lazy writing of Wizards of the Coast, where they don't actually give you anything to work on. You're basically just supposed to hint at some strange, horrible thing that this thing knows about the multiverse, and then if the characters, for whatever reason, find out what it is, they just go and then mad, and that's the end of that character, I suppose. It's like, well, that's just lazy, really. I can think of some certain things that about the multiverse of Dungeons and Dragons that would drive characters insane. It's kind of my specialty, and hence the usual madness. We're back to live streaming. Sorry that I've been very slack on the live streaming, and I will be for the next few months as well. I'm going to basically have one live stream every couple of weeks. While I work on doing extra content. So I'm going to be making more videos in the background because come the end of December, I'm going on a holiday down south to help my sister with her house that she's renovating and stuff. You're not late at all, Anxious. You're right on time. Just noticed the deeply nerdy shirt design. Very cool. What? How do you know about that? Yeah, so I'm working on another couple of shirt designs. One is the deeply nerdy, and the other one is grab yourself a tasty beverage. Those will be coming January, when I will be kicking off a lot of changes. Could it be the secret of the Exeter titles? No, Moonring. It is not. A live stream? Yeah, I know. You just finished Resident Evil 7 Biohazard today. I assume that's some form of a video game. Chartographer, nice to see you. You're listening to a political debate and your brain was dripping out your ears. Yeah, why would you do that to yourself? You're most welcome, John Paul Cross. Yeah, well, they have published, Darth, various books on the Far Realm and horrors and things like that. The Mind Flayers in particular, the Illithid's got a lot of coverage with Bruce Cordell was pretty much the architect of a lot of that. And that information, as far as I know, is still completely legit. So you can port that stuff over directly into 5th edition D&D and it won't change the lore of it whatsoever. It's been nothing, yeah. Whoa, thanks, Frederick. Yeah, that's all right, man. Yeah, I didn't really understand what you were talking about, so I kind of lost patience with you there because I was working on stuff. Like when I'm having conversations with people on Discord or Facebook and all those various other platforms, and I'm answering questions on forums and things like that, and of course all the comment sections on YouTube, I spend a good 3 hours every day just corresponding and answering questions and replying to stuff and reading through all the comments and things. But it's starting to get a little bit on top of me because there's a lot coming from different platforms and stuff. So, you know, patrons and Subscribestar and the Gluminati and Discord General and yeah, all that stuff. So you'll forgive me if every now and then I'm a little bit late replying to one particular platform or the other. But I try. Hey, Miss Eccentric. Long time no see. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the Morgue video. Yeah, I'm getting into the habit of announcing the stream times so that more people can get here or definitely know that they can't get here. Ooh, what are you drawing? I'm just kidding. I know what Resident Evil is. I make jokes about like not understanding what video games are because I have so little time to play them. What is Wild Beyond the Witchlight? Wild Beyond the Witchlight is the latest adventurer offering from Wizards of the Coast. They've embraced the sort of new player base and given options to complete the adventure without combat. But you still can play, you know, as a murder hobo and complete it that way. But they've given more options to people who don't want to complete the game in that particular way, which I think definitely appeals to a broader range of D&D players these days. And it's not specifically any particular group that is aimed at. It's just general. Like I've met a lot of players who are just not interested in combat and stuff, and they want to play more cerebral and interactive games that are just as challenging and just as involved with the rules and things like that. It's not necessarily a light version of play. It's quite a mature version of play. I find that younger players tend to like combat a lot more than in general, but that's not always the case either. So it's very hard to generalize, but it's good to have that option, I think, with Wild Beyond the Witchlight. It is a task-based game where you're trying to unlock access to something to prevent something. And in order to do that, you can either fight your way through and get the things that you need, or you negotiate and work together with NPCs and things like that. There are still a lot of dangers and things that can end your character really quickly. It is the Feywild. It's inherently dangerous. There is a carnival in the first sort of bit of the game, but that's not present the entire way through. But it's kind of interesting because it includes elements of the Feywild from various stories and other movies and things like that. And I like the references to things. Like, for instance, there's the clock in the carnival, which kind of mimics the clock in the labyrinth. You know, you have 13 hours to complete the labyrinth or your baby brother becomes one of us forever. That sort of thing. Yeah, D&D 4th edition had non-combat skill-based challenges. I didn't enjoy them so much because they were basically just rolling your way through adventures. So yeah, they weren't so much challenges as they were just ways of using your skills stacked as a group to accomplish something, which was kind of boring. That always ended up being a negotiation with the dungeon master as to which skills were applicable to the skill challenge, involving lots of bribery with pizza. Multiple dice rolls, yeah. You just got into 3D figurines. No, I haven't seen the Dragon Beholder. I haven't seen any of the previews from Fizzbands. Looking forward to it, though, obviously. Hey, Morgan. Thank you. How would you set a world where all the good deities are from the far realm? Boy, that's... I don't know. Are they really deities, then? Or are they just powerful entities? What's your definition of a deity? You know? It's kind of a tricky one. Because you're changing the fundamental metric of what a god is in that particular case. Old Testament angels. Yeah, Old Testament angels. Have I looked at Domains of Delight from Wizards on the DM's Guild? No, not yet. As I say, I've been very busy writing scripts and things like that. Oh, you're welcome, Alan the Dude. Power gamers probably won't like it. Well, you can still power game your way through. You can power game... Look, a character optimization is not just about combat. You can power game a negotiation or a skill-based character. I do it all the time. You can power game a rogue that is basically undetectable and extremely good at accomplishing skills. That's power gaming too. Ooh, no, I have no information on the Blood Queen. That's interesting. I'd like to find out where you got that lore from. Did I hear about Storm... Did you know about STR kicking out GGG Son of the Con? What the hell? Like, please, write words. If that's what I think you're referring to, I have no involvement with that whatsoever. Thune being a true neutral deity, yeah, could be. Hey James, not much. We're just catching up. Hey Jay, what's the bit about the having a problem with being a good areas in the Forgotten Realms? Still needs to be maddening like Alice in Wonderland style. Yeah. One of the most important things to remember with the Domains of Dread and the Feywild, the Feywild is of course the memory. So you forget when you leave the Feywild quite often. So people can have exposure to the Feywild and not know that they were there. So you can have a sort of an alien abduction kind of thing going on with the Feywild. Thanks, Bilbo. Just a reminder, everyone, this is a monetized super chat enabled live stream. It's part of the way that I support myself online. I've wanted to explore the far realms in the negative energy plane using a planar ship capable of taking squishy prime material characters to inhospitable and exotic locations, 20,000 leagues under the sea style. Yeah, absolutely. You can do that by basically using like Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion sort of, you make it a demi-plane, right? And then you heavily protect the doorways and things like that, so you can have a force barrier where you can see out and in of the entrance to the demi-plane that's kind of basically permanently open as a porthole. And there's no reason why you can't have multiple entrances and exits to a demi-plane, essentially like Doctor Who's TARDIS. Doctor Who's TARDIS is a demi-plane, or it's a series of demi-planes inside itself. It's bigger on the outside, on the inside than it is on the outside, because it's a demi-plane. So that's a perfectly reasonable means of traveling around the planes. Demi-planes aren't fixed in space and time. They don't exist in space and time. They're sort of outside of it and inside of it at the same time. Not only that, but you could essentially have a fixed demi-plane which is projecting into another realm of existence. So you don't even have to travel. You just basically walk into your demi-plane, and then the demi-plane has got connections to other planes of existence. The elves experimented with this a lot in the time before times, and also the Batraki experimented with portal magic this way. It invariably ended in horrible disasters because they could not control planar forces like that. They didn't understand the structure of space-time, and also there were other factions which were at play trying to stop or control or make those things break out of their bonds. Demons, for instance, will always try and take over demiplanes and tear them off and make them part of the abyss. It's that corrupted sort of elemental nature of it, where the abyss wants to grow by absorbing other things, and part of that is absorbing disruptions to reality. The far realm, of course, will always seep into aspects of alternate physics and things, like the border area between a demiplane and a regular plane is where it will sneak in there. And gods and things like that will try and correct and iron out those things and make sure that they don't exist, because they want the planes to be exactly how they've put them. Mechanists, for instance, will assess and detect demiplanes and try and shut down ones which have been going too long, sort of thing. Inevitables will try and stop anything that creates that tries to bypass barriers or natural forces, that sort of thing. Also, spellweavers will try and usurp demiplanes and blow them out to destroy planar barriers, because they want everything to go back to being one plane of existence that covers everything. It's very complicated. Bilbo, thank you. Part 2. Outside of the standard Spelljammer type vessels, is there any lore on vessels built to handle extreme environments like the Far Realm or negative energy planes? Well, I kind of covered that as well. You can sort of usurp divine power, divine morphic power. So if you could somehow, I don't know, grab an avatar of a god and put them to work, mind control them to basically create a demiplane permanently around themselves, and then ride that god like a space vessel, you can do that too. You could take a ride inside an avatar of a god. I don't know, hollow out an eyeball and travel around inside a mind-controlled avatar of a god. That's definitely an option. Think of Guardians of the Galaxy and the head of the Celestial that they were living in. Which book are Ravenloft doppelgangers in? That might be Van Richten's, I think, possibly. So TARDIS, yeah. Time and relative dimension in space. No, the Feywild is not the land of dreams. The realm of dreams is another demiplane, or is another parallel plane of reality that sort of sits between the Feywild. So it's a higher dimensional. Like if you dial the dimensional vibrations up a little bit, you go from Feywild, realm of dreams, astral plane, outer planes. Goes like that. Thank you, the Koyukin. Can you put a phylactery into a demiplane? Yes, you can. Remember, the Lich has got to get access to the phylactery to feed souls into it. And it might be difficult to cross over into the phylactery if he gets destroyed, because his body needs to regenerate close to the phylactery. Or its body. Can you become a god in your demiplane? No, it's not that simple. Although I quite often don't say you can't do a thing flat out, because it's your game. You can do whatever you want. Seed of the World Tree on a rock made by a dwarf. Yeah, you do that. Yeah, you could have something like Yggdrasil could have special properties where the timber of Yggdrasil is used to create a vessel that can travel between different dimensions. That's certainly an option. But of course, harvesting the wood from Yggdrasil may have consequences, particularly if it's the living wood of Yggdrasil. Another option is a demon ship that's made up of demon body parts. Demons and also fey creatures tend to have the ability to travel between dimensions fairly easily. So you could have a fey part ship as well, made from living feywild material. Can you place a phylactery into the ethereal plane and feed it souls that way? Yes, you can. How can you protect yourself on the negative energy plane? Probably the easiest way to do it is to become temporarily undead. It's possible. You can temporarily become a lich. It's very, very dangerous, not always successful, but it's one surefire way of protecting yourself. The best way, though, is to become an incorporeal undead, because even corporeal undead like a lich, their physical form is at risk of being eroded away by the negative energy plane. It's that dangerous. Any matter that goes there, even undead matter, will get worn away eventually. Who's got the brownies? If you made a ship out of demons, would it be a flesh golem? No, it would be something else. Is Cryonax alive in 5th edition? What are his plans? He's alive if you want him to be alive. I don't know what his plans are. Make things cold. Stanchgate, that is exactly right. Yeah. If any of you are aware of the Palladium Rifts supplement Atlantis and the Splugorth, they use biological slavery pretty much and mutation to get supernatural creatures and turn them into magical artifacts. So you can imagine you open up your holy sword, for instance, and it's got these horrible desiccated fairies inside there who've had their magic sapped by this weapon, and you had no idea. It's like, that's why it could cut through planar barriers. How do you roleplay a Necromancer civil war? Thanks, Morgan. That's a good question. Well, Necromancers, of course, would use bodies and souls and things as a resource. That, of course, you're going to run into problems with celestials and things like that, and even like the powers of good and evil both have problems with necromancy when it's used out of control to summon souls and things like that. Part of the problem with the undead, and as I alluded to in the Morg video, that you can have, like the Morg in particular, is a soul of a psychotic serial killer who they can't spontaneously come back from the dead. They actually need to latch on to a negative energy being that is coming through from the other side. So they become a symbiotic organism of the two. So their soul is still inhabiting their body, but it needs the assistance of something else, which is using them to get into the prime material plane as well. So the objective of these incorporeal undead in the negative energy plane is to enter the prime material plane and drain off as much energy as they can. Now, if you wanted a cosmic horror sort of an aspect of the thing, learning a cosmic horror, it would be that the negative energy plane is actually the end of the universe, and the positive energy plane is the beginning of the universe. And traveling between those two, you're actually traveling through time. So traveling from the present to the positive energy positive energy plane is traveling backwards in time, and traveling from the present to the negative energy plane is traveling forwards in time. And it's extremely difficult to get back either way. So it doesn't really matter where you go. You end up going back to a point in time or a point in time. The negative energy beings are trying to, so the flow of energy from the positive plane to the negative plane is actually the flow of time. And that's what creates all of the reality and the interactions between positivity and negative. It's a constant flow of positive to negative. So creatures that are in the negative energy plane are actually at the end of time, and they are trying to maintain their existence in any way possible because the universe is dead. It's dying. Stars have winked out of existence. The only objects that exist now are black holes and pockets of condensed negative matter. And the only way that they can sustain their existence is to drain energy from the past, which the net effect is reducing the overall energy of the multiverse, which quickens its decay into nothingness. So it's the end of reality, as far as anyone knows it, is the end of time will drain power from, and so the multiverse will actually cannibalize itself, and it's inevitable, and it will all disappear. So there you go. That could be something that the elder brain of a very, very powerful illithid elder brain gets an understanding of, and is horrified that there is in fact no way to become totally immortal, that there is an end to everything. And that would probably drive one of your characters insane if they found that. Particularly if they're a necromancer. Robert, thank you. If a party was enacting a solution to the abyss and the demons found out, what sort of defenses would the princes prepare? Well, the abyss itself can defend itself. In fact, there is a good case of it was an unknown pantheon that assaulted the abyss, and the abyss rose up and killed the pantheon instantly, and then has been feeding on them and spawning off unique forms of demons called the Iomara ever since. So the abyss itself is alive. It's a massive elemental. Think of it that way. Thanks, AOPND Gaming. Have you seen Diablo 2 Remake yet? I got tons of new setting ideas and atmosphere for dungeons thanks to that game. The original classic Diablo was great. I've read some reviews about what they've done with it. They've left the core code of it intact. They've just updated the graphics. They've widened the screen view that you get. So it's actually better if you're playing like various classes that have ranged attacks and things like that. Of course, I won't be supporting it because I'm still boycotting Blizzard, Activision, and anything associated with them until that entire company is gone. So, yeah, I won't be talking about it either. How many miles per Gelfling do the Skeksis get in their 2022 Spelljammers? Nice. I really like the lore of the power crystals, the prime crystals, and the whole world setting of the dark crystal. The whole idea of the crystals, that there's multiple crystals and they pin reality, and if you mess with those crystals, they create dimensional warps and things like that. So my original intention of bringing you 5th edition Fraggle Rock is expanding greatly into a world setting that involves 8 different planets, 8 different realms that are linked by these crystals, with a reoccurring motif of symbiosis between different species. So yeah, there's a lot of overlap between them. For instance, like the podlings from the Dark Crystal are actually the precursors of Fraggles, for instance. Yusuf, thank you. Hey, in your opinion, how would a devil trapped in the Feywild interact with the vague rules of the separate domains there? Would they be like those rules, frustrated with vagueness? Yeah, because the devils are inherently lawful, and the Feywild is inherently chaotic. So it's an environment that they just fundamentally do not like. Like it grates on their nerves horribly that things do not make lawful sense. That's just an unfortunate aspect of being a devil, that they are locked into being lawful. They can't get around it. Kind of like if we have the ability to ignore rules. Devils don't, unfortunately, have the ability to ignore rules. So they can take contracts and things like that very seriously. It's not just that if they break the rules, other devils will punish them for it. Like, they just fundamentally can't do it. It's like us trying to like ignore gravity. We can't. You fall, you jump, you fall. So yeah, they don't like it. So in that respect, they can't really become natives of the Feywild. They can't become a devil which is now a part of the Feywild. The Feywild doesn't absorb devils. They are fundamentally separated from it. So it's constantly trying to expel them, really. Thanks, Bilbo. Weird question. If New Zealand were teleported into the faerun of the Sword Coast, how do you think it would do? Which faerun policy would you most likely advise your government to ally with? Polity. Good question. I think Lantan probably would be the best place for New Zealand to land. I would aim for around Lantan, not only because the climate there is pretty pleasant. It's a little bit too tropical for my taste. Maybe above Lantan. So if we were probably around the Nulls Isles, that would be a good place. Yeah. So we'd be on the sort of like even around the Moonshay Isles would be reasonably nice. Between the Moonshay Isles and the shore, for instance. New Zealand's fairly large by the way, so we would take up probably from Arm all the way up to pretty much that entire coastline, actually. Yeah. New Zealand's bigger than it looks on the world map. It's about the same size as Britain. Not the UK, just Britain itself. The nation of many arrows? No. Like, we would get on well with the gnomes and the hobbits. We just would. We have a similar sort of I don't know, how would you describe the New Zealand psyche? We don't believe anything's impossible. We work as a team. We work for the greater good. We're generally fairly moral and ethical. We don't have a very high corruption index in our country. We're always shocked at how separatist and chaotic and selfish Australians are. I'm just like, yeah, there's exceptions to every rule. I'm just talking about general stuff. But that's politics. John, that's a good one. How big of a ritual combined with a massive brutal war and systemic slaughter would it take to create a kaiju-sized flesh golem to host the disembodied soul of an old one? Yeah, it'd be pretty tremendous. That would be a campaign, essentially. New Zealand is lawful good. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are 100% the Shire of Nations. We are 100% hobbits. It's true. We're hobbits in space too. We have our own space program. We've got our own spaceships launching satellites and things like that, which is something I find hilarious. Greetings, programs. A fan of Hankering, I see. The Muppets Underdark. Nice. Yeah, exactly. Just like the vampires needing permission to get invited inside. Yeah, they can't just not get permission. I think the best I've seen that demonstrated was a vampire that got forced to go inside somebody's house when they didn't have permission, and they basically started just bleeding out. Their blood was just pouring out of their body, and they're essentially just eroding away, and it was extremely painful. Yeah, New Zealanders are space jamming hobbits. It's true. Hello, Kickass Duke. Yes, a vampire's permission can be rescinded by the owner of the home. Yep. What? John, like when I'm asked questions about dwarves and elves and stuff, I usually default to the Forgotten Realms. It's just the way it is, because I've got to stick to something. And in the case of the Forgotten Realms dwarves, they quite often the females quite often are, well, there's a big disparity between the male and female population numbers. So of the entire population of dwarves, I think it's like 35% or 30% of them are female compared to male, and there's a 15% fertility rate or something like that. So the fertility is really down. It may have differed quite a lot, but in Dwarves Deep, the numbers are pretty stark. So the dwarven females basically stick to dwarven society. There's a lot of internal pressure in their culture for dwarven females to stay in dwarven society, to basically, otherwise their race will just disappear. There are actually a lot of half dwarves, but they appear dwarvish or human, and they pass for one or the other race, and so you can't really tell that they're half dwarves. The only case where the half dwarves look like distinctly different is on Dark Sun, where the mole look quite different, but that's forced breeding of a specific group of half dwarves, and it's not the same as the breeding of half dwarves in the Forgotten Realms. They do actually exist in the Forgotten Realms as commonly as half elves and things like that, but they are basically just dwarves. So yeah. As for dwarf flappers, that's so bizarre. Flappers were chaotic. They're too chaotic for dwarven culture, really, to support. They were dilettantes that embraced societal extremes, really. So these days they would be essentially rave clubbers and things like that of the time. So yeah, they would possibly be dwarven females who raged against their own culture and decided to leave dwarven society and go and live amongst the humans and short-lived races, and they basically would drink it up and I don't know, get sassy and stuff. But they would probably face a lot of long-term problems because they live for 300 years, and you can't really sustain that in human society for 300 years. You can't be a flapper forever. Also, human societies change so frequently that it's difficult for dwarves to adapt to something like that. They need stability in their life, fundamentally. Prohibition would be heresy to dwarves, that's true, yeah. Are we living in our own roaring 20s? Well, the only thing roaring at the moment is our climate. So maybe. Hey, Matthew Threads, thank you very much. Hey, AJ, I was wondering, would a Gnoll traveling with the evil adventuring party, what kind of attitude would he have? So Gnolls thrive on destruction and murder. They quite like it. They like bullying and killing. Hyenas in the wild are actually much better hunters and much more active hunters than lions are, for instance. They've got one of the highest kill ratios, so they're actually being hunted by a hyena would scare the piss out of me, because they are very, very good hunters. And also African hunting dogs are very, very good hunters as well. But hyenas, yeah. So Gnolls are brutal killers. They overwhelm and they tear you to pieces. So they like blood, they like ripping flesh and things like that. So basically they just yeah, big choppy axes, brutal blades, serrated blades and things like that. They like flesh tearing, they like people bleeding out, they like entrails hitting the ground. That's what they like. That's what Gnolls like. Sounds like a song in there somewhere. A Gnoll warlock, for instance, that reads entrails as part of their divination rituals would be highly appropriate. A Gnoll druid that summons wild animals in order to send them to their slaughter would also be appropriate. If I were turned into an Ixazacitl in the Forgotten Realms, where would you go and what would you do? Also, how would you turn Ixazacitl society to good? Well, I couldn't. Personally, I would have my own sensibilities, so I would want to leave Ixazacitl society and transform myself back into a non-manta ray creature, because that would be so weird. I'd probably enjoy it for a day or two, but yeah, no. I would be horrified by being an Ixazacitl. So I would try and find merfolk or something like that, explain to them what has happened, and by sending intermediaries with notes, and then get them to transform me into something else, probably through a reincarnation spell or something like that. What's under the Sea of Fallen Stars? The Sea of Fallen Stars is the kingdoms of Seros. It's an entire group of nations and with a big, long, storied history of their own. So if you're looking at the Forgotten Realms wiki, look up Seros, and that's Seros, and the history of Seros, or just look up Sea of Fallen Stars, and you'll go down a merry rabbit hole of aquatic adventure. Yeah. A ranger with trained hyenas, yep. Roaring 20s, it feels like those 20s are screaming. Yeah. Yeah, we're in for a pretty crazy couple of decades, I can tell you. Drinking radish wine chronically. Radish wine. Fantastic. Of course, the Fraggles eat radishes. Thanks, Bilbo. The negative energy plane is often described as a chaotic realm of hungering entropy, but some undead have higher level intellect. Are there any organized societies, gods, or cities native to the negative energy plane? There may well be. The problem is that how would we know? Getting to them would be near impossible because it's an infinite void. So what's our places of reference? We have a certain distance from any natural portal or a occurring portal. It may be that all magical portals can only exist within a certain band of the negative energy plane, and there is vast distances where all sorts of things could exist. We just don't know. Part of the chaos of it, of course, is that it's unknowable, it's ineffable. So yeah. Super intelligent Orca Paladin pods would turn your demon rays good. That's a fantastic idea. African wild hunting dogs have the highest successful hunting rate of any other mammal, aside from us, of course. We are the primary hunters of this planet. Oh, sorry, Mark. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the Japanese mummy. Sounds fascinating, though. I'll have to go back at that one and have a look at that one for you. Can't answer what I don't know, unfortunately. Ooh, John, try avoid using the word terrorist in the chat. YouTube don't like that. How would you turn Rickrolling into a magical effect? Essentially have a ghost bard which shows up whenever he's mentioned. Like there was some ritual that he performed to become legendary, and the effect is that he only shows up whenever his name is mentioned. But he's always playing exactly the same song. And his name is Rick Roller. Or it could be a god. Rick Roller. Rick Roller, the god. The Howling 20s, yeah. Ghoulish Coda, thank you. I'm running a Planescape campaign based on SG1 with the Mind Flayer taking the place of the Gould, with the Rod of Seven Parts added as a way of battling the greater demon threat. Advice for world building. I've got one monster coming up for you which you're really going to like, which is the I've forgotten the name of it. The Sorshar. So the Sorshar are essentially the Gould. So if you give me a few days, I will have a video for you that is perfect for your campaign. You won't need to worry about the Mind Flayers. The Mind Flayers, in fact, will probably use the Sorchar or be... Typically, they were enemies, but you could combine the two to be... the Mind Flayers could be a development of the Sorchar. Because there's similarities between the two. but that is a very good question, and I love your idea for that campaign. It could be that if you're world building, the mind flayers, the Illithids, actually have built a world. And it could be that they've used parts of the Rods of Seven Parts to anchor and control that world. Because the like feeding off the lawfulness of the rod, for instance, to create dimensional anchor points that they could get the elemental plane to pile rock and stuff into. Can the negative energy plane swallow the abyss and destroy it? Yes. Yeah, getting into the negative energy plane is way easier than getting out. Yeah, good point. Japanese mummy, so the saints who starved themselves in attempts of enlightenment. Oh, interesting. Also, the Chinese immortality through use of toxic chemicals to kill one aspect of yourself to create an imbalance which makes you an immortal. Hence why one of the Chinese emperors had a river of mercury in his kingdom or some such. Mr. YouTube is not happy, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Tibetan monks who desiccated themselves and drank mildly poisonous teas to embalm themselves while alive. Yeah. Because, you know, they didn't know any better. Hey, freaking Paco. It has been a while. Sounds like something a bard would do, yeah. I've got another video which is coming up. I'm actually doing the editing for it today, but it won't show up for a while, which is the Yearthak. That was one of the requested creatures that I've had lots and lots of requests to do, and I have actually done that video. It's good. The Yearthak is essentially, imagine a Nile crocodile, but give it wings, and you know how the crocodiles can make like a subsonic noise? Well, amplify that times 1,000, and that's a Yearthak. They have the ability to project rays of a sonic lance, and they're pretty formidable. They've also got, I'm reminded of this, of course, because we're talking about bards and stuff, and there's a legend of a bard who got turned into the first Yearthak as part of that video. So there you go. Sonic Boom! That's the first Chinese emperor, yeah. He's the one who created the big army of Terracotta Army. The negative energy plane is just a computer's recycling bin. Yep, Yearthaks are blind. That's true. Can necromancy and biomancy be combined with to create hideous mutant zombie beings like Resident Evil, like the Licker? Yes. In fact, I'm waiting for a Magic the Gathering supplement on Phyrexia. Because that's exactly, yeah. Yearthaks and Yethounds. Yearthaks and Yethounds. And Nulls full of entrails. What dice do I personally use for my random tables? I use a D20 and a D6. I use D100s usually, because you can make any length of, like, for instance, this is a D10,000. So you use 4 10-sided dice with a possible 10,000 results. And it's long been my objective to make a book of random mutations of 10,000 different options, or a book of 10,000 random superpowers. Thanks, Gabriel. What do my dice look like? I have many, many different dice. Here's some dice that I've designed, though. I'll show you these, shall I? You can get these from Best Gone on Amazon. Best Gone, I designed some dice for Best Gone, and they manufacture them. There's the 12 primary emotional states dice. So this is good for determining what the NPC starting reaction is. This one is the random weather dice. So it's got an up and down temperature and also the different primary symbols that meteorologists use for different weather states or weather patterns and things. So you can randomly determine the weather of any particular location or time. This one, though, is the random cardinal direction dice, which is the most useful for when you want to determine which direction a random teleport or characters who become lost and wander off, which direction they're going. So there you go. You can buy those as a set on Amazon. Would Mary Poppins count as a fae or celestial? I think she's a fae. Because she's a story more than anything else, right? I mean, key point there would be you know the name Mary Poppins, so therefore she's a story, a legend, therefore fae. Yeah, wilderness dice. Other dice I use, I've got a lot of metal dice. You can see in this, well, you can't actually see it here. I've got a chainmail dice bag. My go-to D20s are these two here. I have these on my desk all the time, just in case. But I've got dice everywhere. What are these ones? I've got a nice blue D20. This is Days of the Week. I've got some clinically designed, super crisp-edged true rolling dice. That, like, look at the edge on that. Woof. Cut yourself. You could shave yourself with a D4. Crisp as. Yeah. I've got sparkly dice, I've got big dice, I've got small dice. All sorts of dice. Yeah, Mary Poppins. Who? Mary Poppins. I thought you said Mary Sue. Mary Poppins would be scary, yeah. Clickety clack. A face hugger fae. Hey, thank you, Aquamentus. Thanks for including the Pathfinder info on the newest Red Dragon video. Looking forward to the rest of the series. Yeah, I need to get around to making more dragons. I'm quite interested in seeing what they're going to do with Fizzbands, because obviously they're going to bring us some elder dragons. So the big colossal dragons. So that'll be good. Lego dice. You got a mix of elven and runic dice. Mary Poppins, y'all. Yeah, there's so many dice sets these days. Boy, oh boy. You can get pretty much any dice that you imagine these days. Yeah. I really like drakes, because drakes are like the animal version of dragons, right? They're the, like, drakes are like the chimpanzees and the orangutans and stuff of the dragon world. So the dragons sort of acknowledge that drakes exist, but they don't feel any particular, like, you know, we're not bothered if somebody has a pet chimpanzee, for instance, and a dragon is not bothered if somebody's got a pet drake. Drakes make excellent riding animals. And in 4th edition, there was guard drakes, and there were swarms of drakes and things like that. They were very quite effective. And they should be just as much variety in drake species as there are in the chromatic and metallic and gem dragons, for sure. The best improvised line ever. Was that improvised? I did not know. Chaos Dragon. Undead dragons exist. Yep, there's a short article in Dragon Magazine, which I've been meaning to get around to. I'll probably just do that as a reading the article to you and showing pictures and stuff. Which essentially shows you what a wraith dragon and a zombie dragon and a vampire dragon are like. I mean, it's possible. It's the Age of Dice, yeah. Yeah, I did cover a lot of drakes. Your shipment of Fizzbands got pushed back a month. Damn. Yeah, if I can talk about my Kickstarter for a short while. We've only got about 260 odd people left that we're shipping out all the products right now. So we've done 73% of the backers have got their products are being sent out with tracking numbers. So we've just got about 200 odd left to go. And then after everyone's got their stuff, then I will direct you to the pre-order store where those who missed out on the Kickstarter will be able to buy their battle mats and things like that. We've got a stock of the character sheets and the tracker mats. So those are pre-order, but not pre-order because we realize that people are going to buy stuff together. And yeah, but we need to, in order to sell more of the big battle mats, we need to manufacture more of them because we don't have extra stock of them. Hey Ghoulish, thank you. How do I handle a council of liches who try and keep things under control in a universe without gods? Magic, really. So if they took the place of gods, essentially what they'd want is they'd want to keep magic under their control. So they'd want to stop anybody from disrupting the natural world using arcane magic. And think of them as protectors of sacred sites where there's a lot of magical energy flow. So think of like ley lines and sacred sites, standing stones, stone circles, monuments and things. Alignments of stars and planets and things like that would be very, very important. The appearance of cosmic events like meteors or asteroids, that sort of thing. So when if there aren't gods and stuff around, gods essentially just sort of control that sort of thing in the world by default. So if there's a council of liches who try and keep magic under control, they're essentially keeping the sources that power magic under control. And one of that, they might work in cahoots with druids, or they may work against druids. Hey, Moonring. Would the Sandown Clown be a fae or aberration? I don't know what the Sandown Clown is. It's a clown, so I automatically don't like it. Mr. Eccentric, yeah, I kind of have addressed the topic of mixing different dragon colors before. With the metallics, it's more like a blending of the two. With the chromatics, it's random. It's random. They end up having mutants that aren't really related to either parent, or sometimes they'll just be like one parent and not like the other, or something. So there's an element of chaos to the chromatic dragons. There's an element of order to the metallic dragons. And how it may be with, like, I think the chaos side of it would take over if it was a metallic and a chromatic dragon crossbreeding. As for the gem dragons, I don't know. So a lot of the lore of dragons is more recent, like the fixed forms of dragons and stuff like that is more recent development. Originally, dragons weren't split into chromatic and metallic and gem dragons and things like that. They were just random in Dungeons and Dragons. The bee vomiting drake, yeah. A hive of clown parasites evolved from tapeworms. That is horrifying, John. Have I ever used a brain dragon? No, I have not. Like, part of the joy and the downfall of being a very creative dungeon master and seeing the ramifications of things in the game is that I don't generally need to put overpowered things in a game because just simple things like tools and ropers and stuff like that, I can wipe out a party of adventurers pretty quickly just through clever play, essentially. That's not like pulling the wool over their eyes or anything. It's just giving the monsters the potential that they have. And using them in the environment while showing what they do, not telling the adventurers what they're doing. So, Yeah, you put some ropers in a situation where the adventurers aren't expecting it, like a petrified forest on a desert, for instance, and they're not ready for that sort of thing. Or aquatic ropers in a swamp. They're just not ready for that. They're not expecting them. 100 alley cats, yeah, absolutely. I probably won't do a video on the Corey because that's Eberron, and I don't really. I'm just not enthusiastic. Eberron's not for me. I know that disappoints some people, but I've got to have something I'm not interested in, and I've tried with Eberron, and it's just really not my cup of tea. How would I kill a party with Ixatzarchittles? I would rain Ixatzarchittles on them. A freakish weather event, raining vampire stingrays. Yeah, please sign this waiver before you sit down at my table. Absolutely. Jewel and chips. Oof. Bronze dragons are best because bronze was created by humans. There is a lot of parallel there. Yeah. That's great. A giant stone elemental with symbiotic ropers as teeth and fire slimes as digestive fluids. It shoots the roper's pierces offspring out as projectiles. That's great. I like it. Eberron just feels like it's ever wrong. That's pithy. Do you think I'd do a video on Pandarum? Maybe. An Ixatzarchitl NATO. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the city Shan, the city of towers, for instance, is interesting, but it's kind of empty. Like I just didn't get I didn't get enough. Like even Ravnica has got more information in it. And yeah, it's like this description of a world, but when you're used to dealing with faerun and the Forgotten Realms, where anywhere you point on the map, I can look up information on that. Eberron is just sort of blank. There's just large cracks of nothing. And it's great if you're sort of a homebrew DM. I'm sure I could probably make something interesting about it. But the time that I tried to do a adventure where they just sort of wandered across the wilderness and discovered stuff, everything they discovered it just didn't have any connection to them. They just didn't feel, I don't know, none of their characters felt particularly connected to the world. They didn't have a lot of motivations. Yeah, the players just weren't very enthusiastic about their characters and what was going on the planet. So they weren't connected to Shan. They didn't. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe I didn't start them off with some sort of like. Maybe it's important to start off with a level 1 character and build a community and stuff that they were actually involved with, and then build from there. I don't know. It just didn't gel. What new videos are you working on and pondering just now? Well, I'm doing a video on some spell stuff, like Witch Bolt and Fireball and Magic Missile, and this other one, which is an instant kill spell. And also some monsters and stuff. And I am thinking about what my next Kickstarter project will be, which will be a book. And taking the suggestions of everybody who like I've mentioned this to, and they said, look, all of your scripts and stuff that you've written, if you can just basically present those in a cohesive sort of format. I thought, well, yeah, I suppose I could do that. So it would be my alter ego in the Forgotten Realms, the Sage of Candlekeep, going on one of his year-long adventures, where essentially he's going across he's heading down south and then heading along the southern coast into all those areas of the Forgotten Realms that you've never been to before. As far away from the Sword Coast as possible, as far away from Thay and Cormyr and all those, and like, you know, the north. We've seen the north, we've seen all that stuff, but let's go south and head down to Hobbit land and across the Estegund and the Purple Desert and all that sort of stuff. So you'll see little bits in my videos where I'm talking about his journeys, right? Those little story elements at the start of my videos will start popping up a little bit more as I'm stretching my writing muscles. Power word fart. That's actually the spell. That's actually the spell that I'm talking about in the thing. Yeah, essentially like a Volo's guide, except it's a little bit more reliable. You with the AJ Pickett swimsuit calendar will never happen. Eberron is a prison-esque world, isn't it? Well, it suffers from we don't want to be part of the multiverse, but we are now kind of problem. Like, it tried to establish its own outer planes, right, with the moons and stuff, its own cosmology, and yet it's kind of part of the cosmology of the rest of it too, but it doesn't really work. So it's like it's got a disassociative sort of feel to it. So I just don't get the way that it handles psychic stuff and far realm stuff and things like that. It doesn't gel with me. Yeah, but it's just a personal point of view. So I won't make that sort of content because that would come across in my videos. I'd be like, meh. Nobody wants me talking about meh subjects. Like, you want to hear what I'm enthusiastic about. And I'm happy to do that forever. Like Volo, but not a terrible person. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you'll be getting a first-person perspective of what it's like to walk through Helruer and Drambrath and Lurin and what the Eastern Shire is like and what the Great Rift what's going on in the world of faerun. And it'll be kind of agnostic of all the changes and stuff that have happened to the planet, because from the perspective of the Sage of Candlekeep, the planet just is what it is, right? He's not aware of any great changes and stuff. As far as he's concerned, it's just the current world. And as he goes, he'll be exploring ecologies and environments and things, but it'll be mostly monster lore, the monster lore that from all these tons and tons of scripts that I write. This is this year's work, by the way. There you go. It's nice to have a tangible sign of what I do. It's like, are you a writer? Yeah, I am. It also makes a cunning hat. No, John. I'm good. That poor tree. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, thick notes. Oh, Iron Kingdoms is actually a pretty good setting. My friends played at least a couple of campaigns of that, as far as I know, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. I never, unfortunately, got to play in that campaign, but I like the miniatures and stuff. I like the idea that it's a miniatures game and also an RPG. Hey, thanks, Ghoulish Coda. Thanks for the advice. I appreciate your videos are a real source of inspiration, especially your video on Resurrection Spell and the effect on life. Yeah, it surprised the hell out of me that that got so much traction and interest. But there you go. The trees deserved it. Hey, Mr. X. Nice to see you. Mr. X has arrived and has taken over the law. In case you missed it, Mr. X, I was just showing people my, this is all of my scripts, my YouTube scripts for this year. If you ever start doing script writing, I highly recommend that you print them out as you go. The irony is if I was ever using those for anything, I wouldn't actually use that apart from possibly just searching for notes. I was just about to end my stream anyway. Would a Chaos Bolt be able to function if cast on Mechanus? That's a good question. Probably. I don't know what effect it would have. It would have the same sort of fundamental physical immediate effects. The long-term effects of a Chaos Bolt would be tricky, though. No cheese, Joel. No. I haven't been eating cheese on streams for a while. Just got here, don't end yet. Okay, I'll go for a little while longer. Yeah, Wild Mage and Mechanus would be weird. A combined YouTuber anthology Kickstarter would be epic as well. Yeah. Well, New Zealand produces a lot of really good quality cheese. So we don't generally need to ship in a lot of stuff from overseas because we can make our own. Like New Zealand's main cheese is cheddar, and cheddar is actually takes a long time to make. We do particularly good cheddar. We don't do particularly good blue cheese. Well, I don't know. My favorite blue cheese, they sold the original factory which made it and moved it somewhere else, and it just wasn't the same after that. Yeah, don't get me started on cheese. New Zealand's population of sheep is a lot less than it used to be because we've switched over to dairy farming, for better or worse. So I think Australia has got a higher percentage of sheep per population at the moment than New Zealand does. Not entirely sure. But there's nothing wrong with sheep. Sheep are pretty cool. Very laid-back critters. And of course we're getting more and more goats as well, and you can make goat milk cheese. Not too keen on sheep cheese. The Fraggle Rock and Dark Crystal project is coming along slowly. It's as I said, it's kind of transforming into the world of Thra and its connection with the Fraggle Rock is a demi-plane conduit. There's actually a fairly extensive wiki on the world of Thra and the crystals of power and all that sort of stuff and the planes of existence. So it's actually way more in depth and complicated than you would imagine for a kids show and a movie. But yeah, you could easily set a role-playing game in a Dark Crystal universe. Yeah. Oh no, you got a dairy allergy. Damn. Yeah, goat cheese is good in certain types of cheeses, for sure. Like, I imagine it'd make a really good white mozzarella. Good luck milking a rabbit. Or a dolphin, for that matter. Yeah, the new Dark Crystal series on Netflix was a bit meh, but it did establish a lot of lore for the world of Thra. You've never been one for cheese yourself? Yeah. Cheese in moderation. As anything. Pig cheese. Ugh. That's true, Mike. Happy spring, yeah. Bleh. John, what are you on about? Are there any other material plane elementals like Galeb Dur? I can't seem to find much on them. Yes, there are. There's a few. One of them just looks like a rolling boulder. Of course, a lot of the prime material plane Earth elementals don't come to the surface. Why would they? They don't come anywhere near it. It's very very risky for them to come to the surface because of erosion and organic beings. And that's one of the interesting things about if you ever look at the stats for just our planet, for instance, there's a lot of real estate underground. Like, we think the surface world is, we think of it as more extensive than the Underdark, but in fact the Underdark could have a massive surface area of different layers stacked on top of each other. And if you stretched it all out, it would vastly exceed the surface area of the Earth. Not only that, but a lot of the surface area of the planet is covered in oceans. So, you know, when you think about a massive army of Orogs coming up from the Underdark, for instance, they could dwarf the population of surface world nations who had no idea they were there. And one of the scary things with the Forgotten Realms is phaserious energy provides that sort of vitality that the sun would normally provide for plants and animals on the surface. So you've got no problem with the amount of food and nutrition and things like that growing in the Underdark that these Orogs could exploit, and their population could grow to enormous numbers. So, yeah. Thanks, Kakas. How much must I donate to get a video on Kalendoris, the famous blue dragon from Dragonlance? Well, that's the thing. It's my channel and I do what I want. So if I'm not enthusiastic about something, I won't make a video on it. It doesn't matter how much you pay me, unfortunately. But I do appreciate the question, and I do appreciate the topic. Perhaps if there was more topical Dragonlance content coming along, that would, like, you know, make it more relevant. But I never really played Dragonlance. I read Dragonlance books, but I never really played Dragonlance as a D&D player. Not only that, but the stuff that I have got of Dragonlance, like, for instance, where is it? Somewhere up here. There's like the history of Dragonlance, or Dragonlance Adventures or something, and it's just a collection of crap. Like, it's one of the worst books that I've got. Like, they did a bunch of interviews with Dragonlance authors and stuff where they were speaking like in character. It's just, it was not a good read, and it didn't provide me with any useful content whatsoever. It's like there was songs and poems and recipes and legends and blah. Yeah, the history of Dragonlance is kind of weird, to say the least. The surface world is just the penthouse of the Underdark. Yeah, it's like this cold, sparse, war-torn area that's full of forests and things like that. It's strange, really. If I had a stand power like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I don't know what JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is. Sorry, John. Where do we pre-order this book? Oh, the Kickstarter book. Well, that's an option too. I mean, basically, if I have an overview of generally what I'm going to be doing with the Kickstarter, I could essentially launch the Kickstarter. And that would help me get artists and stuff like that on board, because that's essentially what I'd be paying. Like, the main cost of it would be, obviously, the publishing and shipping these days is a bit of a nightmare. But it's mainly paying artists. And there's a few artists that I really, really like the artist that we worked with for the Legends of Frozenfar. He did a really good cover of that, and you'll be seeing that soon when it arrives, because it'll be a big canvas on my back wall over there, which I'll show you all on my community tab, just to show you how cool that artwork actually is. Like, I gave him the design brief of, I said, okay, I want a Behir fighting a Remores, and the background behind the frozen lake is this. It's a specific town, and it's one of the 10 towns that's built on this rise overlooking the bay, the lake there, with the adventurers in the foreground, and one of them is casting and powering the runes on the axe of the dwarven fighter. And he nailed it. He just absolutely nailed it. Like, my sketch that I sent him as the brief was just basically stick figures pretty much, and he absolutely nailed it. Tony Delateres. I don't know if he's actually even working on D&D art at the moment. But no, up and coming like Filipino artists and things like that. These guys, you know, who do absolutely fantastic work, who just don't get the exposure that they need. And forgive me if I support people in various other parts of the world, like Chinese artists and things like that, who just don't have any exposure to like the market at all. It's extremely difficult for people in China who are interested in fantasy art and things like that to get recognized or get their name or the work out there. And they're just people, you know, through no fault of their own. Bilbo, thank you. Have you ever seen a campaign setting where the characters are trying to run a tavern, aka D&D Tavern Keeper? Yeah, that actually happened in one of the best campaigns that we had. That's the origin of the pink slime, the delicious pink ooze, and the that pink powder that was the super MSG, essentially. And they based their entire tavern on this onion dip that they made with the super MSG stuff. So they were just selling tons and tons and tons of this super addictive onion dip, to the point where all of the because it was kind of like, yeah, this tavern. So this tavern had a goblin barmaid named Crandy, who was lascivious and extremely like mercenary. And she turned the upper floor's guest house into an extended steam room and brothel, essentially. She then blackmailed a lot of the nobles who frequented there. The downstairs of this place turned into a massive rave party that was being operated by all of the kids from the Wizards Academy who failed their end-of-year exams because they were too busy having an onion dip-fueled rave party centered around a magical chest that crossed over between different dimensions. It's a long story, very involved campaign. But yeah, I highly recommend having a base of operations like that. That kind of like the market forces, like the town actually became in grave danger because there was a religious crusade that was coming from the human kingdoms further inland. They were heading out towards the coast, and they were going to essentially besiege the city. The city normally had a robust supply of different plants and livestock and stuff, but the farmers, because of the massive demand for onions in the city, ended up tearing up all their pastures of other types of vegetables and grains and things and planting nothing but onions for good reason, because they were earning a lot of money. But of course, that put them at grave risk of a siege. Yeah, it was fantastic. Thanks, Moonring. What would an Ixadarchitl's tavern look like? I don't know if they'd have a tavern per se. Remember the ones that exist in underground caverns and stuff like that in the sea are actually the good version of the Ixadarchitl's. So it would be them who have more like city structures and things, being subterranean aquatic creatures. Yeah, it was a very Terry Pratchett sort of situation. They also went on for adventures along the coast and things like that, and we had a really Halloween-style adventure as well, involving scarecrows. That was quite good. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to start a pub that everyone is in D&D garbs. I'm all for that. Onion dip you would die for. Yeah. Alibi Bar from Shameless. Oh, I haven't seen that series either. Yeah, scarecrows are always fun. Okay, I'm going to take off, everybody. Got stuff to do. Videos to edit. Content to make. It has been great. Sometimes I want to go where everybody wears a sword. Balzebul. Thank you all, and I'll catch you probably not next weekend, but the weekend after. Oh, now I've got the Cheers theme song stuck in my head. Thank you very much.